so high. Bidadi, the water cost will not be so
The
high.
airport has come maybe 7 years back.
Correct.
But historically,
Even earlier, the water cost was
water
high.
costs are very high in Bangalore because of the
Yeah, it has to come from very
three
far
stage
distance.
pumping. Simple three-stage pumping and coverage. So like Hyderabad.
See,
So it's a political decision which needs to be addressed. Otherwise, the citizen is eventually paying the price.
Yeah, but you
Not
see
in
this.
terms of coping cost, but in terms of cash out.
Yeah, this willingness to charge is a larger problem than willingness to pay. This
Well
is
said.
Leadership
there's an old one in
has
water.
yeah. You see, there is an inhibition in the minds of the leadership
I'm
that if
saying give free. Citizen ko free de dijiye.
the basic things.
Don't bother. Still it makes pure commercial sense.
How please? This is
The fellows
interesting.
are implementing a scheme of 2,000 crores for fetching additional cubic meter of water. It is much more economical, it seems to me. With 1,000 crores, you can fix the problem of half the city.
And you
that's
can give
true,
the water
just by
free.
saving water,
Give
what
it.
is getting
Doesn't
leaked.
matter, lifeline free de dijiye, kya farak padega? You're
Actually-
charging anyway 65 rupees for the.
Yeah, it doesn't
you're
really make
squeezing them
sense.
out.
You know, the billing and the delivery cost is 20 rupees.
Cost of service is at times is more than the money you receive.
So even
Exactly.
if you're giving it free, that cost is not going away, right? It's still
So you
there.
have to work out that model.
So I'm a finance guy, it doesn't make sense to me. If something is costing me 20 rupees to give, why should I give it for free? I'm still spending 20
No,
rupees.
the political risks are negated.
Uh-huh.
Shashi Shekhar.
Sir. आइए.
ये नया card शायद.
You keep changing your cards. So how many cards are you
The
carrying?
last card was for 4 years in his company.
Yes, I took over
Yeah.
as a junior replacement of him.
So now you are at?
Bhartiya, we are making smart cities in India
Oh, अच्छा.
and launching social.
You started already?
आधा बन गया है बैंगलोर में कभी. We'd love to show you.
Good. Yeah.
Shall we start formally? We were discussing, many projects.
So actually we were only talking about water usage in cities. We were not talking about water usage in irrigation or water usage in industry. Or we are not talking about Namami Gandhi.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, our topic is the urban water management any which way. So we and I don't think 1 hour will be sufficient for us to go into agriculture, which is a huge subject in itself. And particularly the topic is again having PPP in smart cities. So we had long discussions in the morning about PPPs and the smart cities, both. PPPs, as we know, I will just briefly sum up our discussions, the outline today, has been, a question in most of the people's mind that whether PPP is a successful model or not. In the last, 3 to 4 years, we have seen PPPs going down. We have seen in road sector, in power sectors, there are so many stressed assets today. The question is, that is one reality. On the other hand, we also expect private capital and private efficiencies to participate in this growth story that what Prime Minister is planning to do. So we need to probably go deeper into the PPP model and understand why some of them failed and some of them are successful. Particularly if we are talking about say urban water, actually in roads they are already doing, the hybrid model is already out. So the risk sharing is one of the aspects which was understood by government as well, that it need to be revisited. And so is also the other structural part of PPP. So coming to the water, I think we need to see what can we do. Can we have PPP in water, which is in urban sector we don't have many success stories in PPP. Can we give water security to our citizens in smart cities? Can it be sustainable? What type of service levels do we expect? just to give a brief about what we should have, I would just touch upon where we are today, as in India. Our per capita availability of water of 1545 meter cube per annum in 2011 will be hardly 1140 meter cube in 2050. This reducing trend apart, what are we doing with our available water? Today, more than 50% water we don't know. We were discussing the same thing. We call it non-revenue water. So we treat it and put it into the system, but we don't know where it is going. These challenges are replacement of the old assets that we need to do. Definitely the telescopic tariff helps preserve water, but the question is, we don't have meters, only 4% metering is there. So how do we address that? Coverage is only 65%, willingness to pay and willingness to charge, both are challenges. 100 cubic meter, the other side of water is the sewage. So 100 cubic meter we put in, we get 80 cubic meter of sewage. The situation is much worse there. We are putting 38,000 million liter per day of sewage untreated into the environment. 12,000 goes to the Ganga and 3,000 cubic meter of effluent goes in the Ganga every day untreated. ULBs definitely do not have the financial wherewithal to address this problem. Neither they have the credibility for the lenders to support investments in these towns. So like in the morning I was saying that if the central government puts, instead of giving them grants directly, if they give an insurance wrap for the PPP investors in which they assure the payments to them on a regular basis, a whole large sector can be unlocked where the infrastructure investment is direly needed and where otherwise it is not possible except the government spending that it will be created. Almost 38 million people are affected because of the waterborne diseases, which will become more and more severe as our surface water as well as groundwater is getting contaminated because of we are not treating the sewage. So this brings us back to the PPP and a question whether PPP still remains a feasible option, and in my opinion, if we have to take private participation not only for the capital but for the accountability that it brings in and the efficiency it can bring in, we will have to go well deeper into this subject and find solutions and maybe rectify whatever are the errors in the PPP model. So in the same line, I would like to put that first thing on the table, that what structure of PPP projects, what amendments can we do, whether in the context of whatever risk sharing or the black swan events, to the eminent, which will probably help in finding a way to have this participation, revived.
Would you want me to talk?
No, maybe I can pitch in. I was looking at the specific example of Varanasi, Banaras, and I was just looking at some numbers. So non-revenue water in Varanasi is about 35%, and against a total demand of 276 million liters per day, against 276 actually the water availability is 330, which obviously means that there is more water than is needed. But as you very rightly said, most of this water gets wasted in transit, and then whatever reaches you can't charge for it. So I don't think we should be only talking about PPP, if you ask me. We should be talking about getting the water to the household, whichever method, whether it is public or private or a mix or whatever. I am very enthused about the Amrut program, because in the Amrut guidelines, the priority is going to be on service level of water. So each household in the AMRUT, Atal Mission for Rejuvenation of Urban Towns. So within the next 5 to 7 years, each city in India will be funded to have 100% coverage of taps and sewerage connections in their homes. So I think it's a huge business opportunity for the private sector in India, not necessarily in PPP but also in construction. And let me assure you, as a private individual, why should I take risk? I'd rather get paid by the government and put every household tap in every household. So, at one level, it is a risk-free business to do on contracts, especially since the Amrut funding is coming. Is it the challenge of improved efficiency? And is that efficiency possible under government systems or only possible under private systems? So we have examples from across the world. I mean, two examples I'd like to cite are Scottish Water, which is completely government owned. And Scotland was similar to us about 40 years ago. And today they are very, very efficient in a complete government owned setup. The other example I will cite is from Asia, in Cambodia.
Yeah, capital.
So Phnom Penh actually had a wonderful transformation of their water supply system. It was worse than Delhi. Today you can drink water from the tap. So is it a private versus public thing? I think it's a more a greater issue of what? Efficiency and management. So I tried to understand why Phnom Penh succeeded. And it succeeded because there was a champion who was completely empowered by the political leader to fix the problem. So, we are from Bangalore and Hyderabad and Delhi. Suppose the Chief Minister of Karnataka empowers the water person in Bangalore, within 2 years, she or he will deliver output. So, that's why I'm saying, let's not just talk about PPPs. And the last point I'll have is that the water sector in India, particularly the urban water sector, I'm not talking about irrigation, I'm not talking about industry. The urban water sector, as we have discussed earlier, has more than its fair share of political activism. So there are so many NGOs who are working against the so-called private sector taking over the water in cities. There are not so many NGOs against power companies taking over power distribution in cities. But it is a politically, shall we say, challenging sector. And therefore, I guess the way forward for a city like Varanasi or Hyderabad or Nagpur or Indore is if the political leader over there takes a call on improving management and efficiency, then perhaps the best way is to give out an operations and maintenance contract to a private sector entity without asking for too much capital investment from that private sector entity, and have a mechanism where improved efficiency, the gains are shared between the private sector and the public sector. And of course, you have a champion.
Yes, but here we are facing to all business model who want to improve efficiency of PPP model of revenue sharing. How you will get the first data? What is the state of the art today? If you want to show that you are efficient, you need to demonstrate that you came from there.
So, yes,
This
that's
is
a very.
this is a big issue.
Let's ask Mr. Lakhani, because when they started in Nagpur, the bid condition was that this is the baseline. You cannot have a bid without a baseline.
There was no baseline.
Tell me about it, please.
Yeah, he is
So-
absolutely
So
right.
you had to calculate the baseline.
No, so that is why the minimum take or pay was assured by the corporation for the first 5 years. Because the 6 months they tried to establish the baseline from the historical data, but there was no baseline. So without having a visible revenue stream, how will it become bankable?
So what was the baseline? Number of taps in homes?
No, basically the billing, how many customers are paying, how much they are paying should be there. Then you can say, okay, I have improved this.
Yes,
So the
if
point
you
that you are
don't have the
saying-
basic data, you cannot show what you
What you have
The
done.
discussion
So
is
in a
of-
city
now-
like Varanasi,
No way.
Exactly.
you'll not have this data.
Almost all the cities do not have this data because there was a single entry system of accounting in all our corporations. So, you really don't know
Continues to be.
anything. It continues to
I think
be.
very few towns have gone for double
No,
entry.
despite
No, but
10 years.
even in single
Tamil
entry.
Nadu is only state, perhaps.
So let's say
taken
Madurai.
reform on a state level scale, but I don't think that any other town has done it.
So what you're saying is that even a city like Madurai or Indore will not know how many connections are being built and how many are not.
Yeah, no, not a reliable data. You may have some data, not reliable.
Madurai will still have slightly better data than Indore.
So the challenge that you talked about, if the political challenge is what I thought I'd address, and that comes from having worked in government and NGOs and now in the private sector, is what I was discussing earlier, that citizens are not aware what is the cost of water and what is the alternate value of that cost in each city. So perhaps my suggestion to the ministry is that water can be used urban, but urban in factories, in offices, in malls and homes. There is also irrigation, power plants, chip making factories, if you please, forests and climate change. So there are 22 different alternate uses of water. If there was a study paid for perhaps with the government, but with common criteria like we've done just now for the state ranking, said state by state or perhaps city by city, this is what each 1,000 liters or whatever is costing us to deliver, and then this is what the tariff we are getting, then there will be a more rational debate about it. Like today in power, at least we know roughly it costs 5 rupees per unit, farmers are getting 0.5, that has to be covered through some other subsidies, industry is getting it 8.5, but there is a base price at which we can make discussions and use that to, so if someone says tomorrow, like city NGO activists saying that we want power for free, somebody can come back and say ki, who's going to recover X thousand crores. In Panika, we don't have baseline for this, we don't have a baseline on the costing.
My sense is, I mean, there's a lot of academic work and WSPs of the world and World Banks.
Okay, if we can get them to.
Hundreds of studies have been carried out in terms of what is the opportunity cost of water, what is the tariff,
But it's
versus
not-
what is the tariff versus actual cost, city by city, city by city. I have sitting on a data of 1,300 towns data I can churn out.
Oh.
Accuracy is always an issue. We categorize data into reliability and the service level benchmark. The Ministry of Urban Development has 1,300 towns. 1,300 towns data.
The
is-
citizens don't know this.
No, that's what I'm saying.
They
The
can't
issue
agree.
is even when Exxon Chan started now, this whole started this whole process. They came through a war. They didn't even have maps. At least we are better off. At least we have invested in so-called dysfunctional GIS, and we have some basic information. Wherever 24-hour water supply is there, they need not have double entry accounting. I can tell you thousands of situations where not having double entry is not a panacea for service delivery. There are ways to address some of these issues. So the point I am saying is, I think the operational issues of data reliability, maps not available, these are technical steps,
Surmountable.
intermediate, which can be
Surmountable.
country like India with so much of technical know-how can easily be surmounted. We don't have to import like Phnom Penh to prepare a GIS map. We have hundreds of consultants here. We are doing it for all the other countries. I think that going back to the PPP issue, I completely agree with you. I think at least our top 50 cities, metro cities, then we come to the Amrit,
Yeah, that's right.
400
The
plus
53 million plus cities,
plus
let's say.
cities, where the bulk of the urbanization,
Right.
economic progress is happening. And then comes the class 1 cities of 1 lakh population.
Right.
Metro cities, they have the ability to deal with the problem in terms of capital investment.
Right.
The model that Karnataka went through, like Hubli Dharwad experience in the beginning, or now the current model, these are all typical management contracts where investments are coming from the governments. Either it could be state or the city. But the efficiency in terms of service delivery, KPI, the Mysore,
Yeah.
went through JESCO, of course they couldn't deliver, that's a different issue. But at least the management contracts of the world, I think there is, at least for the big cities, instead of waiting for private sector investment, taking risk, I think governments can seriously consider to go for performance-based management contracts and fix the problem in the next 5 years or next 10 years. Otherwise, the problem, the goal will be shifted as the situation, the
Worse.
cities expand.
Yes.
So I think that's my take is on
We
the
have to be,
PPP.
yes, we have to be target oriented. We cannot have any project without a goal and then a result to be profitable, to demonstrate that 1 million people are connected after so many years. We need to have each model need to have some target.
Of course,
So,
there will
borrowing
be
from him-
Question
timeline,
Let me
of
ask you,
course.
Sir,
borrowing
question
from
is
his
about-
thought,
Mhm.
borrowing from his thought, if in the next 5 years you have to see visible change on the ground, which is the quickest way of doing that? Is it structuring PPPs, which as both of us know takes a long time, or is it performance-based management contracts?
No, it doesn't take
Or
long
is there a
time.
third?
It doesn't take long time. I don't agree on that count. You see, it's basically the clarity of thought if it is there. And you see, there are two major points in PPP versus EPC, I will say. What experience we had in the earlier Ganga cleaning program, government spent 4,000, 5,000 crore rupees.
7,000.
7,000 crore rupees. What happened to those plants? They're all lying idle, most of them. Where is the accountability? If you bring a private player with skin in the game, again, it is better what you are saying, that there is no risk for the private player. He comes in, performs his EPC, subcontracts the O&M to some local contractor, goes away. Perfect. You make money, get out. But will it help improving the system on the longer run? I think no. In my opinion, unless there is a skin in the game of the operator, he will tend to take a shortcut out of that and move on to the next project. But if you want, because these are not highways that you build it and they will run on its own. These are STPs. They need to run. They are biological processes.
Yeah.
And
All I'm saying is their remuneration is purely linked to the performance. And if they delay performance, their payments also get delayed. If they don't deliver, the payments are blocked. So there are very clear incentives for performance.
Correct.
So
look, it is not so
The
simple,
STP
Dr.
does
Chari,
not run.
here, because when I go in the field to perform, I have to many times file FIRs against the corporators,
agree,
against the
sir.
same
Those were the
people.
operational issues.
No,
No,
but
performance
you see,
wala to
the water is all about operations.
Yeah,
It's not on paper.
correct.
You see, when you go in those small lanes of a particular community, you for months together you cannot enter there.
Agreed.
Even with the police force, you cannot enter there. So you have to find a political way out. So it's all about operations.
I
It's,
totally
they are
agree.
more social projects
No.
than a technical project.
Water sector per se, my understanding is that there is no PPP per se. PPP, whenever we talk about PPP, we take into account some revenue stream. Now, right now, there is no revenue stream in the water sector, whether it's the water or it's the wastewater sector. The moment you talk about revenue stream, then the political system or the NGO system starts talking about privatization. So, privatization may be the last option now, but performance and efficiency improvement is a huge challenge before the government. Phnom Penh, it has worked, or Malaysia, it has worked. Singapore, it may have worked. But in India, it will not work. In the government delivery system, the accountability is a very, very serious challenge. We have seen last 60 plus years, we have tried to deliver and we have failed. And with the growing needs, and the growing is so huge that this challenge, I don't think that the government servants are capable of delivering. We have, let us give a small example of Ganga. 7,000 crores in Ganga Action Plan 1, Ganga Action Plan 2, NGRBA. We have created over 3,500 MLD of capacity, and the recent survey, a study report of Central Pollution Control Board, they carried out survey only in 30% of the STPs, and they found that most of them were not performing. No, and 94% of water that came out remained untreated. At least they did not meet the standards. So Ganga remained as unclean as it was. So which means 7,000 crores of public money, at the current is $1 billion plus, is sunk into Ganga literally. Same is true for Yamuna. So we need to obviously come out of that paradigm and move to a paradigm where system ensures A, efficiency, B, accountability, C, performance, and D, sustainability. Now, sustainability, let me address at the end. In government system, it is not efficient, so you have to think of alternative. Accountability is completely opaque system. So neither efficiency nor performance, we have seen that it has not worked. So what is the alternative? So private player in an infrastructure where there is no visible revenue. At least we have not created the revenue. So there is no visible revenue. There is no market for treated grey water. People in this part of the country are not used to paying per month charges for wastewater. So obviously there is no revenue stream. So only alternative is that if Ganga has to be cleaned or any river is to be cleaned, then government has to fund. So government has two options. One option is public sector, one option is private sector. So invite the private sector, give them concession for 15 years and pay the annuity, but linked to performance. So you fix the standard linked to performance. So where you have a role, we need to create a very distinct performance payment security mechanism. So that becomes our major area. Why this is required? Let me come to a slightly bigger issue. You know, today 70% of pollution of surface or groundwater is caused by sewage. 70%. So what are we leaving for our grandchildren or great-grandchildren is complete pure polluted water, which means we are going to invest huge amount in health, fundamentals. So we need to treat this water. You know, New York, in US also, once they passed the law, they found that, you know, such untreated water going into the natural stream or pondage would ultimately result in health problems. So they passed an order that they legislated that, you know, nobody will release water without treatment, bringing it to the standard prescribed in the law. Then all the municipalities started asking for money. Federal government gave money, then they found that it will completely dry up their system, their coffer. Then they said that you have to achieve this. How you achieve this, not is your problem. Then they started charging people, and that's how this municipal bond concept worked, and the pool bond outside New York, and that Phoenix,
Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona. I think Tamil Nadu is the only place where this pool bond concept worked. Pool financing worked. But there, if the entire investment is to come from public sector, you know, the municipalities borrow and then, but then again the efficiency issue will come. So better that you create adequate funding mechanism for the private sector based on the payment security mechanism through annuity created by the government, and private sector comes and participates in and creates the asset, maintains it. Now during the period of concession, which is 15 years, as we are proposing for Ganga, the sewage projects, in 15 years time, which is a fairly long time, you can bring about necessary regulation to reduce groundwater abstraction, ensure that all the non-potable uses where fresh water is being used are debarred from using fresh water, because let me come later, the availability of fresh water. So they are debarred from using fresh water for non-potable purposes. So then you start creating market. 15 years is a good period to create market, and hopefully the market will give enough revenue, hopefully, I'm still on hopefully, to run the system for another 30 years. Because these assets run for 30, 35, 40 years. In Australia, I believe they run for almost 80 years. So at least we take 40 years every year. You know, can you believe that the assets we created in 90s or early 2000, we are going for renovations, which means again same amount of investment. So these are very costly investment by the government. So you have a very great role, and we see as a big market. If in Ganga we are able to create this market and we pay over a period of 15 years, which means per year my outgo is small, that government budget may take care of. State and central government budget may take care of easily. During this period, now our courts, the Supreme Court, the High Courts, I have had occasion to talk to a couple of judges. They have started introducing the concept of polluters pay principle. NGT has already passed for Delhi, so it will start, you know, I expect next 5 to 10 years down the line, polluters pay principle will gain currency. So then you get two revenue streams. One is polluters pay, second is sale of wastewater, and hopefully both put together